I'm going to be controversial here. It's that trophy for second place, third place, fourth place. That's ruined it.
Welcome to Built in Vegas, the podcast where we spotlight the stories, strategies, and resources behind the businesses that make Vegas thrive. Whether you're starting up or scaling up, you're in the right place. Brought to you by the Video Podcast Studio.
Did you grow up here in Vegas, or where did you grow up?
No, I moved here in 2011, part-time, and then became official a few years later. And from Ohio, went to high school in Maryland, then college, and many years in California, except for a couple of years in New Mexico. So I bounced around a little bit.
That's cool. So becoming a brain surgeon, right? That's pretty crazy. Were you a kid knowing that this is what you wanted to get into, or like how did you kind of fall into that?
Oh yeah, I just I knew I wanted to be a doctor from an early age. You know, and some encouragement there. Nobody in the family was a doctor, but I just knew the biological sciences and medicine was where I wanted to be. Probably wired to help your fellow man type of wiring, and then you get into undergrad and you have some idea of what specialty and where you want to go. And when I started medical school, I knew I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. We filled out a little form the first day and the last day of medical school, and mine looked exactly the same. What do you want to be when you grow up? Neurosurgeon, and everything was directed towards that. Medical school was kind of just a stepping stone to get to neurosurgery. Had to go through it, but it was sort of just something you had to do.
And what was it about neurosurgery in particular that like kind of stood out to you?
Well, I like to use my hands to do stuff, make stuff. So I knew that doctors tend to go into two groups, right? The thinkers and the actual actors, the ones that do things with their hands, surgeons versus non-surgeons. So I knew I was going to be on the surgical side. But the nervous system was one of the final frontiers, still is. We still don't know everything about the brain and things. So I'm drawn to let me help figure out the unknown, right? That always still inspires me. We're still doing that. And just the technical, demanding, microvascular nature, things are very small, microscope, that was just very cool. In high school, I used to get these surgical instrument catalogs and learn the instruments and, super nerdy. And still am, admittedly, but it was driven there. I also had an inspiration, wonderful physician I shadowed in college. It was actually part of a class, and Stephen Holtz. So maybe he'll see this, but he's a neurologist. So I followed him, and learning about the nervous system was just so interesting.
And what was one of your favorite things about being a neurosurgeon when you became one?
There's a wonderful dopamine release with helping someone. And they come in and say, "Oh, that shooting pain I had down my leg, you fixed it, doc. Thank you. I can run again." I mean, you're like, yes, that's the best feeling. So, like anything, we're all measured by our dopamine rushes, whether it's Instagram scrolling or whatever we do. It feels good to help others.
That's cool. And so, did you open up your own practice with neurosurgery?
Yeah, early on I was with the group, and I quickly learned that that's a great way to make money for other people. And I didn't initially want the headache of running a practice, so I learned how to do that. I learned how to mitigate it. I learned how to streamline it, modernize it, technify it, and we're in the process of redoing that all right now. We're redoing our whole computer system and our software to sort of catch up with what we've been doing it sort of in a little bit old-fashioned way, right? So I opened my own practice, not wanting to, but it became a lesson in necessity. Yeah.
And what was one of the hardest parts about opening it? Going from what's the right word? Hold on. I'm making a sign so I can remember that. Oh, actually, you're taking notes. I forgot. Yeah, taking notes. We'll cut this part out. Because you're going from like a practitioner,
right,
to then practitioner/owner.
Right.
What was one of the most difficult challenges for you?
Well, you have to take on a new cost, right? Whereas I was paying into the overhead as a colleague in a group, now you're writing all the checks. So if you have a low month, you're not taking home any salary. So, learning how to do that well. And then of course, when you go out on your own for a minute, you're not as busy because all the business was going into the other practice. So you have to learn how to market yourself. And as a physician, that's a little foreign, right? We just sit back at the hospital and wait for sick patients to come in, right? That was the mentality. And that's really not how it is. You got to get yourself out there. And we renew that all the time. Now we're on social media and doing things I never thought I'd be doing, but we're supposed to educate. So as long as it's educational, I feel good about it, right? We're out there explaining what problems are, explaining what the options are in social media or whatever. That's a great way to get out.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the hardest things too. Even though we kind of like specialize in marketing to a degree, it's like, how do you get out there and educate? Because for us too, it's like, I don't know, I'm not a fan of the marketing where it's just like, let's do these TikTok dances and whatever. I prefer the education. Like, for example, do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
I do.
So I like his content. I digest a lot of it. And I remember I was listening to some stuff because they study everything. They spend like $4 to $6 million a year on social media, on ads and creating the content. And so they analyze everything, and they're doing a lot of like entertainment content and then educational content. And what they realized is they were getting way more views with the entertainment, but the people showing up and spending the money weren't coming from those. They were coming from the educational. So after like them doing that like analysis, they realized and they got rid of all the entertainment and went straight educational because that was what was bringing in those leads. And I think obviously it depends on the type of business.
Yeah.
But like for what I do or what you do, I think the education is probably better because they get to hear your voice. They get to see you. Yeah. They get to feel comforted. Especially with something like, if I'm going to get brain surgery done, like I want to trust my doctor,
I would want you to trust your doctor.
Yeah. I mean, I actually got, what's it called? Hernia surgery. And I didn't know the doctor at all. I mean, a friend had a surgery with him, right? So that's why I went through it. And then he was just like, hey, he has horrible bedside manner, but he does a good job. I was like, well, I don't care about personality too much. It's just, can he get rid of this,
That's so crazy. I got to tell you, when I was in that group, the first couple of years of my existence professionally, there was an older partner in the group. They were brothers. And the older one had this horrible bedside manner. And I would see some second opinions from him. And the patients would come in and say, oh, that guy, horrible bedside manner. What a jerk. He must be good. I'm like, where do you self-rationalize that BS?
Yeah.
He wasn't, by the way. He wasn't very good. I was assigned to babysit him in most of his surgeries for his last few years. But I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. There's no correlation between bedside manner or inverse correlation between bedside manner and skills. Listen, doctor-patient relationship is somewhat intimate in that you're going to trust someone with your health, your life maybe, and you should have a rapport. It's okay to find that doctor.
And what's been the marketing that works the best for you guys so far?
Well, it's changed over time. So 20 years ago, it was my written narrative report. We try to be really detailed and thorough, and we would send it to all the other doctors involved in the care of the patient, with the patient's permission, of course. That's not done anymore. Most of these, sick care health plans and institutions where doctors are part of some system, they just chart it in some kind of crappy electronic system, and nobody sees it unless they go look for it and they have access to it. So our calling card were these great reports. Why? Because then any doctor could just see without having to call my office, ask for something, ask me a question. It streamlined everything. That was probably the first and best thing. Nowadays, I think podcasts are probably my number one way to reach people. Podcasts are the tip of the spear in free speech for the most part. Even social media is monitored and adjudicated somewhat. So here, you and I can talk frankly and openly and dig into topics, and I'll tell you the truth. And people, there are haters out there. They'll maybe not like it, but this is where we let it out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like about podcasting is not only the content that you create out of it for marketing, but then the networking side of it, right? Strengthening relationships, like how you're talking about, you guys were sending reports out to doctors. So like leveraging a podcast to then bring doctors in here to have these conversations with and talk about these things, give them something of value out of it as well, but strengthening that relationship with them to then become a good referral partner. To me, that's, I think, even more powerful than the content, although the content's still incredibly powerful. Yeah. And that's why we've tried to be better about doing ours, is to like reach out, follow up with people that we either work with already or that we want to work with, and it's done really well for us. And actually in the past, like I had like 3 or 4 different podcasts and I wouldn't even post a single episode or clip. I would just like bring in marketing agencies, film them, give them all the content, right? And so I like it. I'm not a fan of getting in front of the camera. I never have been. I've done 20 years behind the camera. And this is an easier way for me to be in front of the camera, getting that content out there and having those conversations that I think provide value and educate the people we're trying to help.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's networking and finding like-minded people to work with in your profession. And rising tide lifts all boats, but so you have to find your tide. There's a tide against us too, especially in my field. Institutionalized healthcare is so scripted, watered down. I know I'm just disgusted by doctors who are, we'll do this treatment because the insurance will approve it, instead of what I really want to do for you, or we really should have. It's better. I'm just disgusted by that.
Do you feel like there's a shift in the market for doctors going away from that?
I think there is a breakout shift, meaning there's a small percentage of, if I can call us brave souls, who said, no, this is not good enough for our patients, and we are not going to accept this scripted, health insurance driven nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I get why it kind of fell into that path, right? Because insurance and getting paid and whatever, but like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you prescribe these things if you know there's a better alternative?
Because the insurance companies have placed the burden on the physician and physician's office to have to fight against denials and jump through hoops. And so to lessen the pain, a lot of doctors just have been beaten into submission, and they're weak. They're weak-minded, and they don't like to hear that. They won't think out of the box. What they're doing now is something they learned to do 25 years ago, taught by someone who learned the same thing 25 years earlier. So medicine is not advancing as fast as it should and could because of the payer, because of the insurance, health insurance sucking out the money in the middle. And it all stems from, government regulations that go back to the 80s and, got worse under the Obama administration when they basically Obamacare allowed these third-party insurers to pay Medicare rates. So basically everything is discounted in this country. And what you get for it is what you paid for it now. You get a 5-minute visit with your doctor. You have an unhappy client, you have an unhappy doctor, you have an unhappy doctor's office, but the insurance companies are sitting back making billions of dollars when you can't get an MRI when you need one.
That's crazy.
No, it's reality.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's reality.
That's fair.
Right? Like, because it really is. Like, I mean, most of the time I think about the doctor's office, you go there, they ask you to come like 30 minutes early. Even when I was getting... Actually, so the whole process of my hernia was actually really bad. Like, with their office was like, did not do a good job of communicating at all. I'd show up early, and I'd be sitting there for like an hour and a half for like literally like, a 2-second thing. And we even called them beforehand, like, hey, do we need to do anything before to schedule stuff? And they're like, no, just come in. And the doctor's like, oh, do you have this? And I was like, no. He's like, well, then I can't even like talk to you. Like, you need to go do this part first. And I was like,
well, listen, there's no incentive for them to do a better job because there's no competition. They know their office is going to be filled with these, institutional. I mean, I'm assuming you have some kind of health insurance paying for this, right? So they're signed up. They're going to get plenty of clients. They want more visits out of it. They want you coming in ill prepared and pretending it's not their fault. Why? They got an extra payment for that extra visit you had to come back with. So believe me, that's scripted.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's like something going on in the medical world that you're excited about? Like some type of new treatment? I mean, I know you talk about like peptides and all this stuff all the time.
Well, I've been, over the years slowly extracting myself out of that, institutionalized cookbook, Kool-Aid consumed system. I've always been trying new things and, what's best for people and protecting patients' access to things they want to try. So my practice is very big in regenerative medicine, stem cells, stem cell derived messaging we call exosomes, peptides, anti-aging treatments, anti-inflammatory treatments, non-surgical. This is what we're doing and where we're headed. So a lot of that is what we do now. I'm very excited about sort of the advancing revolution of this whole turning back to nature. Regenerative medicine is turning back to nature, what we learn of what's happening in the womb, really. So I've been excited about that. I dove into that in 2018 or 19, and it's been no looking back. It's almost all I do now.
That's cool. Going back to, a comment you made earlier about like building the business, taking on payroll, taking on a lot of stuff. I think that's a common misconception of people who aren't entrepreneurs. They just think like the second you open your practice, like, oh, you're killing it. It's your own practice. You're rich now. And obviously it takes time to build it. Yeah. But they don't realize that maybe there's a few months where like you didn't make enough and you have to pay your team, you have to pay the bills. Right. And so you didn't even get paid that month. How do you deal with, I guess, the stress of entrepreneurship? I feel like the stress of being a doctor is probably already high. And then this throw on like owning a practice. How do you deal with that?
Well, the stress doesn't need to be high. The stress comes from politics in hospitals and nonsense in insurance companies. You can get rid of that. So, because stress will age you faster. Listen, it's a business at the end of the day. And even though you want to create a good product and help people the way you're wired, you got to be able to pay the bills and put gas in the car at the end of the day. So, no one's going to get rich on this. That's for sure. But the you learn to streamline. So there are all kinds of outsourcing you can do, and technological platforms online, cloud-based, that can handle a lot of this. A lot of things are, per use, like a payroll, you pay like a certain percentage, a small percentage fee. So it's not, crazy there. But, and I try to streamline. Insurance-driven practices have something like 3 employees for every physician on average. I've always kept mine at 2 per physician, or even better, depending on how many physicians we have. Right now I'm the main earner, and we currently have, 2 in-office employees because we're not dealing with insurance companies. We just said I can't deliver high-quality medical care if I'm held back by that. Patients have all kinds of different insurance plans. Some of them come in and say, I have great insurance. I say, fantastic, good for you. I'll give you a claim form. You go be the biller. You pay me. Here's a claim form. Here are all the codes, because they like all these codes. You go see what you collect. That saves me on the billing cost, right? And it does reduce the number of clients willing to come out of pocket to do that, but I have more time with the patients. We have a higher quality interaction. I'm less likely to miss anything, and we have a higher satisfaction rate, both of the patient and the doctor. So less stress for everybody.
Exactly. And that customer service is probably way more valuable than making an extra buck here or there and trying to squeeze in some more stuff.
You won't make an extra buck if you squeeze in more stuff. You'll make fewer bucks. That's why a doctor only has 5 minutes with a patient in the system, right? Because they got to see 12 an hour to make the money they should be making for seeing one patient for an hour. So someone impressed upon me during my residency that, you really have to get to know a patient. You have to ask them lots of questions. It could be in that last minute of an hour where you find out the crux answer to something that flips the switch on how you treat them. A resident, I think I was an acting intern in Washington, D.C. The resident was a doctor named John Fiola. Maybe he'll, hey, John, if you're out there, wonderful guy. I totally looked up to him. He was a hero, physician. And he explained he had heard of this practice in New York City where a doctor would only see 2 clients a day. You spend hours with them, never missed anything. Like, I like that. I'm a little obsessive. Brain surgeons are compulsive and obsessive, and so I like that model. I don't spend 5 hours with people, but but we book out a lot of time to really get to know someone.
Yeah, no, I like that. And hearing you talk about that, I think about like our clients. It's similar to how we do things here versus other studios, right? Like a lot of the clients that we work with are newer to creating content. They need a little bit more hand holding. They need some help. And most studios are designed where you're really just a time slot. And we try to be as accessible and give our clients as much time as they want, like with us, to like go through ideas, pick our brain, help them kind of figure out. And so I like spending that time with them, especially when they're new, of like asking a bunch of questions. Because the same thing like you're talking about, you might find that one thing that's like, oh, okay, this changes everything now. And it's the same thing with me when I'm diagnosing them, right? Asking them questions. It might be something at the very end where it's like, oh, that's where the true problem is. We do have a solution that can help you with that. So now let's gear all of your idea and your content towards this to help solve this problem.
Same thing for us. And some people are better at communicating what they're looking for. Some people don't know and they need help. We need to help them figure out their path. Some people have a lot of difficulty explaining what's wrong with them. This is in other cultures is even worse. I used to work in the emergency room in my residency, and if an elder Chinese person came in, they say, "What's wrong?" And the family member who spoke English would say, "Oh, they lost their qi." You had no idea where that qi was lost or what part of their body it's lost from, but I mean, they expected us to be able to somehow figure that out. But well, can you give us a little more to go on here?
Yeah, or sometimes they probably think it's they probably Google online. They're like, oh, it's for sure this, and then you start looking into it. You're like, no, that's not what it is. So like, same thing like with clients coming into the studio. A lot of times they're like, this is what I want, and then we start talking to them. It's like, well, okay, you can do that, but your true problem lies over here. And if you leverage our space this way, these are the results you can get from it, and it might solve that problem better than. Right, because a lot of people just think about just the content side. They're like, I just need to create content. It's like, we always like to ask, well, why are you creating this content? Like, who's it for? What's the purpose? Yeah. Don't create content just for content's sake. Like, there's somebody on the other side of that camera. There's somebody on the other side of that phone watching this video. We need to be talking directly to them. Yeah. We need to be educating them, and we need a plan for that. And then also, like we talked about, like leveraging it for the networking side. Can we use this space to help you connect with people in real life? And does that help further the goals for your business? Along your journey of entrepreneurship, what's been like maybe the number one thing that you've learned?
Wow, the number one thing I've learned is, that's a tough one. There's so many things. But I would say I've learned that I don't know everything. And as you were just going through that last section there, it's important to tap into subject matter experts. It's okay to listen and maybe get more than one opinion, like seeing a doctor. Get as many opinions as you want or need or feel comfortable with. Same with me when I opened my own practice, a couple of years into my career. I found a guy who was a consultant, and he did a one-day crash course on how to open a medical practice. And I took that course, and it's still useful to me. So tap into experts. Tony Robbins speaks to this, right? Just emulate the people who are already successful too. Look at who's already crushing it the way you want to crush it. Take good pieces from that and put them into practice. So I don't know everything. I have to go learn it. I still learn every day.
Yeah, I think that's important. And so when I started building this studio, I was very arrogant. I told my wife, I was like, give me 6 months. It'll be up and running. I won't even have to work anymore, right? Because I've been like a solopreneur for like 15, 18 years. Like, I know what I'm doing. And then quickly realized, oh man, this is a whole different beast, a brick and mortar location, dealing with people, hiring. And I quickly realized like there's so much that I don't know about entrepreneurship, and there's so much that I need to learn. And that allowed me to start asking for some more help, start, looking at the people that I look up to and go, okay, what are they doing? How do they spend their time? You know, like one thing I've noticed, and I'm doing a poor job about it, but that's part of this podcast is my therapy session, I guess, is a lot of the entrepreneurs that I look up to care about their health. They work out, they eat healthy, right? And it's a common thread between almost every single entrepreneur that I look up to that has been successful. And so it's always kind of in the back of my mind. I'm like, all right, I need to start doing these things. I need to be healthier. I need to start working out because I need to emulate what they're doing. And there's, you know, I think with like working out specifically, being able to do hard things and push your limits and push yourself makes being an entrepreneur a little bit easier because you prove that you could do something hard.
Right.
I forgot a conversation I had with somebody once, and it was basically just something about like if you set those goals, right, to like start working out, to just do them first off, but to do it, even if it's like 5 minutes a day, to just do it to prove that you can and to not lie to yourself. Because if you lie to yourself in this one small area, then you're just going to lie to yourself in other areas, and you're going to feel okay setting goals for your business and not doing them or not doing what you're supposed to that day because you're doing it over here in this part of your life too.
Right.
And so that's something that I need to be better about because I definitely lie to myself all the time. Like, oh yeah, today I'm going to go to the gym and then I'm eating ice cream or something. I'm like, oh, Ozempic will take care of this.
Well, that's a very good point. You got to be true to yourself and you got to do the work.
For you, is there something that maybe a big mistake or something that you've learned along the way that maybe you wish you would have known sooner?
We make a lot of mistakes along the way. I think I think a few points I'll put in there. I don't think there's any one thing, but I don't think attorneys know everything. And I've gotten some bad legal advice that has not served me well. Same with financial advice. Partners. I've had some, partners at one point in my career, and at the last minute, after years working together, they flip the deal, right? So you trust them until you don't. So make sure it's locked down. Handshakes don't work anymore. I wish they did. They do. When I shake someone's hand, I say something, I follow through, but don't trust that others will. So, or as one of my favorite professors say, trust no one, verify everything, document everything. That's probably the biggest thing.
No, I love that. I've definitely have had that experience on my journey as well of trusting certain people, not getting contracts in play, not setting the clear boundaries or expectations, just assuming that they were going to do their part, and then, nope.
Yeah. That's repeated itself. I've seen that more than once, and so that's one. The other thing I would like to say is that when things are some element or some service line isn't working out, I'm slow to cut off the wounded limb. The gangrenous limb. I let maybe it'll come around. Maybe this will work. I probably need to reassess and do the Pareto principle. Right, you get 20 or 80% of your success comes from 20% of your effort. So you need to keep reevaluating what that 20% is, or refocus on it. That comes from, Pareto. But one of my favorite business books is Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. If you've ever seen that book, it's I employed a lot of that 15, 20 years ago, and that's served me well.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Are there any books that you just absolutely love when it comes to business?
I'm more of a podcast guy these days. I'm reading a lot less. I know that's probably not ideal, but it's a great way to multitask if you're driving or something or going for a walk. But the 4-Hour Workweek was amazing. It really talks to efficiency, and you don't have to do things the traditional way to get as good, if not better, result at a lesser price, And, for example, in that book, he speaks to earn your money in dollars, pay your employees in rupees, and spend your money in pesos. That's the best three-way arbitrage you could possibly make. You're making money at every step. So I outsource, for example, my transcription, when I talk into, the dictation, or I do certain reporting and thing, we send that overseas to be done by people, and that saved a lot of money over the years. And then we've outsourced some work, and we're trying to do more of that now. Have like a receptionist that answers from Colombia or El Salvador or something, right? And that's so you can spend your money that way.
Yeah. I like that point that you were talking about too, where 20% of your time you're most effective, and then 80% is kind of a waste almost, because I think oftentimes as business owners, we feel like we're being productive because we're busy, and we always find things to keep us busy.
Right.
But it's not always the most productive things. Right. Especially for me, opening up the studio, I've worked longer days than I've worked in such a long time consistently. And I kind of had that awakening not too long ago. So I've purposely been like, you know what, this can wait. First off, I'm going to go home and see my family, my kids, because I don't want to miss out on my 4-year-old growing up. And I don't want my wife to feel like she's a single mom all of a sudden. And, I've been working on prioritizing and going, okay, where are my efforts best spent in the business to push that needle forward and to grow the business? And then what else can we either get off of my plate or I can do, but isn't a priority? And it's helped me be less stressed for sure and be more progressive into the business. And it's been nice, but I feel like with young entrepreneurs, you'll meet them they'll flaunt that they worked 14 hours or 18 hours. And I'm like, dude, that's every day for me. And I don't like saying I do that. And I'm trying to get out of that habit. But to me, it's hey, if you're working that much all the time, you're not using your time wisely, and you should be outsourcing stuff. You should be doing stuff, because being busy doesn't mean you're having success. You're probably just wasting your time.
And that's a lot of my colleagues in medicine are wasting their time by seeing 5 people an hour, 6 people an hour. They're not doing anyone any good. That's not success. You didn't help anybody that hard today. Yeah. That's a little bit different angle of what you were taking. But I agree with you. Just being in the office and working on stuff doesn't mean that's too many journeys won't get you on the one you are really wanting to be on.
Yeah. When it comes to building a team and building company culture, what's something you've learned along that journey on how to hire the right people? Because I feel like most entrepreneurs I talk to, myself included, the hardest part of the business is the people and finding the right fit for the business. Is there a method or a way that you have figured out to this is how we find good people to work for us?
I don't know that I figured that out. I think I'm just getting better at it now. And I'm getting better at it because I've hired the wrong people. I've hired some right people. And it just, that's challenging. That's like reading a crystal ball. Who's gonna make it here, especially with, and no offense to the younger generation listening, but I don't think we have the same, we see the same work ethic. People want more for doing less, that is, that right there, if you can sort of signal that early before you hire someone, that would cause me not to hire someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for that. I understand we all would love an extra day off here and there, but don't tell me or show me that. Earn it.
Yeah, I think social media has warped the minds of the younger generation, that they all think that they're bosses. They all think they can be entrepreneurs. They all think that they can do it on their own. They all, everyone, social media has made entrepreneurship seem sexy and easy. And so they think that what you do isn't hard, or that I think that's where the lack of work ethic comes.
Trevon, I'm going to be controversial here. It's that trophy for second place, third place, fourth place. That's ruined it. There's no value in earning it. We have to restore that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there is a shift though coming back to that little bit.
Promise that you're right, please.
Yeah. At least I see it with my kids, and my son plays sports, and he plays at a high level, and so there is no participation trophies there. But even seeing just him growing up in his school, I feel like there's a little bit of a push swing kind of coming back, where you have to earn it. But yeah, I feel like my sister's age is when they started doing like those participation trophies, and everybody's special and everybody deserves everything. And
we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It went so far as we created a whole group. So if you're young and you're listening to this today, if you're out there and you want to be in business, you can own the world by working really hard and doing the work and not expecting it, because you'll be such a small percentage.
I love that. I love that advice. I'll play that clip for my son, because that's what I tell him all the time with hockey. I'm like, you just have to put in more work. Like, everyone's soft. Everyone's lazy. Like, in the world of athletes, though, I think there's a lot more of that, like, competition. People are pushing themselves hard. But like, if you just work hard, outwork everybody, you'll be successful in life. It's like, because nobody's working hard, you know. And True. I use examples of people I've hired in the past and examples of people I know that my son knows too. I'm like look at this person. Look at their life. They don't work. They want everything easy. They don't do anything. They don't work for it. I was like, do you want to end with their life, or do you want a life like this person? And I'm like, no, not like that. I'm like, all right. Then it just comes down to work. Like, I think that's the thing too. Like, with like building a business, there's no secret to it. It's literally work. It's figuring out a problem or a solution to a problem, working on it, being there for your clients, and just putting in that work and that time. I feel like time is one of the biggest components of success for a business, because I feel like the first 3 years you're kind of figuring it out, and then if you last that long, you kind of figured out, you got your client base. Now it's like, okay, now it's kind of go deeper into this and build it. And then after 10 or 15 years, then you probably became somewhat successful if you've stayed. Yeah. I also think all these younger entrepreneurs aren't, not even younger ones. I feel like I know a lot of older ones too, where they pivot so much, not just like pivoting the business a little bit, you know, like how you've pivoted, you've gone away from insurance, which is great. You know, you're still in the same line and you're growing that business that you've been part of for a while, and you're pivoting with what aligns to you, your values, to your customers. But then I know these other people are like, they're in this business for 6 months, and then they pivot to a completely different business for another 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then 5, 6, 7 years later, they're still at the beginning phase of a new business, new pivot, complaining that they've never made any money.
That's the social media. That's the short attention span problem. Although in professions like ours, right, professional business, service industry like this, it does take a few years. But so many businesses now, it's a shorter time cycle, right? You know, because fads come and go, right? Especially if you're selling some knickknack or fashion or something. It's just
like products like hats and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like, there's a hat company called was it Dad Gang or Dad Hats or something? But they're basically just hats that say like Dad Gang on it, and like, or like Boy Dad, whatever. And they like blew up. Like, they went, but it was time. But it was also like a fad. Like, selling hats became like a huge fad on like social media. And then, you know, they do like, I think like 10 million a year now on their hat business, just selling hats that say like Dad Gang. Which is crazy.
Listen, my phone's in my pocket right now. I wasn't seeing any of that, but now that you said it out loud, my phone was listening. I'll now get that in my algorithm. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So to kind of end things off, is there maybe one piece of advice you'd give an entrepreneur? I know you've already given a few throughout this past one, but yeah,
your dream is just a dream until you do the work, until you act on it. Knowledge is power, but executing on that knowledge, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the win is had.
And where can more people find out more information about your practice?
Check us out at ReCelebrate, ReCelebrate. That's ReCelebrate.com, or at ReCelebrate on Instagram and any other social media close to you.
Welcome to Built in Vegas, the podcast where we spotlight the stories, strategies, and resources behind the businesses that make Vegas thrive. Whether you're starting up or scaling up, you're in the right place. Brought to you by the Video Podcast Studio.